Hello, my name is Judy White, and I'm the president of Friends of City Hall here in Marine City. This afternoon we're standing in the east yard of City Hall here in Heritage Square, and you're looking at the grand staircase that visitors to City Hall would have used pretty much all the time to go into the Opera House on the second floor. As you can see, this represents an awful lot of stairs to get into the building. This is a wonderful and grand old building, but unfortunately it is loaded with barriers for people who have physical disabilities, the elderly, the infirm. I love 19th century architecture, and there's a lot to admire regarding it. However, 19th century architects made no concession to people with physical disabilities. So the building is loaded with barriers. That's our problem, because today we have the Americans with Disabilities Act that means that we have to surmount those barriers or eliminate them. So that is our charge in restoring this building, and that's going to involve the building ultimately of an elevator. I'd like to explain why the building is constructed with those doors so highly elevated. The reason for that is that they determined to build on top of what we call today a Michigan basement, or some people might call it a lighted basement or a windowed basement. So you can see probably in the corner there one of the windows to that basement. It was really important to them to get as much light as possible into that basement, and the reason for that is there was no electric light in this building when it was first constructed. Designs were drawn in 1883, building was built in 1884. In working on the interior, we have found no evidence of original electrical service in the building. Electricity was brought in probably after the turn of the century, sometime in the early teens of the 20th century, perhaps. So a Michigan basement means then that the building is almost 5 feet above ground level. And that's going to affect all of the entrances to the building. So I'd like to take you around to the southeast corner and show you that doorway as well. All right, we're standing at the southeast entrance to the building, and I should point out to you that this was the main entrance for the public into the building when city government still occupied City Hall. City government, of course, moved out of the building in approximately 2006. So you see pretty much a half flight of stairs here. When you get to that door and open it to go into the city offices, you're faced with another half flight of stairs before you get up on top of that Michigan basement. There's some windows I want to show you, and I want to show you a couple of entrances. Before I take you away from this area, I'd like you to notice the bronze plaque. It identifies the building as being on the National Register of Historic Places, and that plaque was funded by Friends of City Hall and erected just a few years ago. So let's move again westward. So we're standing on the south face of the building, and you're looking at some of these really nice large windows that illuminate the Michigan basement or windowed basement. They're really prominent all across the south facade, and of course on the north side of the building as well. And interestingly, thinking that they were using kerosene lanterns for illumination originally, that basement today, with the electric lights turned off, is rather nicely illuminated, and you can actually work down there without turning on too many lights. So it works, it functions. So we've moved further west along the front of the building, and you're looking at two doors. The one straight ahead here to my left admits into what we call today the hose tower. I don't know what the intention was originally in building this tower, but it was used to hang wet fire department hoses after a run. And there are pegs and scaffolding inside to raise the wet hoses and then let them hang and sort of drip dry. So the hose tower or hose drying tower. That door there, kind of tucked away, is something that always puzzled us. And recently in doing some demolition work to prepare for restoration, we began to get the impression that that door may have been there for musicians and actors who performed upstairs, because there seemed to be remnants of a staircase that would have gone right up to the backstage area adjacent to this door. Let's go around to the carriage doors. So we're standing at the southwest corner of the building, and what you're seeing here to my left is the area where the original carriage doors used to exist. Imagine two very wide carriage doors that would open, and it would be the place where the fire department parked their fire vehicles. The first vehicle would be a wheeled wagon, and it would have been drawn by men who volunteered as firefighters. Probably after that, an investment in horses to draw the pumper wagon, and ultimately an investment in motorized vehicles, which ultimately would have been too big for this area. However, because it's a wheeled vehicle that had to be pulled out of the building, the very interesting thing is it's at ground level. This is the only barrier-free entrance into the building, and therefore it is by default the main entrance for us today. Well, we have just stepped through the carriage doors and come into what functions as a foyer. We are, of course, in the midst of some demolition and restoration, so pardon our dust. But what you can see in the shot, and we've put yellow tape there for our own safety purposes, is the necessary stairs to get us up to main floor ground level. And I want to take you there next. So we have made our way back to the east end of the building, and we are standing in the foyer. And this is where you would arrive if you had climbed that flight of stairs at the east end of the building and you wanted to attend some sort of an event in the Opera House on the second floor. Having arrived here on the foyer, you have your choice of two winding staircases to take you to the second floor. Of note, I should point out that we recently had this portion of the staircase rebuilt. This is steamed oak, and it was a very interesting project to see being completed. Well, now you're looking southward at the other half of the double winding staircase. And if you examine it, you realize you've got two flights of stairs that you have to negotiate to get up to the Opera House. Certainly, the Opera House was the center, the hub of the entertainment industry, the place for community dances and such in Marine City. But also, it was off limits to anyone with a physical disability, any sort of handicap. Well, we can't tolerate that today, and we shouldn't. The building should be accessible to everyone. And the solution for that is an elevator. Now, the interesting thing about the elevator that we have to build in this building is that it has to make 5 different stops in the building. So it has to serve the basement, the ground level, the main floor over the Michigan basement, and of course the Opera House upstairs. So in between the main floor and the Opera House is a strange little area we call the mezzanine, and that accounts for the 5 layers that I mentioned. An elevator is a really expensive project, and that's why we apply for so many grants, and we're hoping that if we can land a couple of those grants, build that elevator, and open the doors to everyone. So thank you for your attention on this, and I do hope you can consider a donation to Friends of City Hall. Thank you.